Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. So, for our reflections on Juz 20, I picked a couple of verses that we have probably read multiple times and maybe just quickly passed by them. And this reflection again goes to the theme of Quran and science, which is one of my favorite themes. And I'm hoping to convince you that it is actually a very spiritual theme. It is not just a scientific thing, and it is a particularly humbling and awe-inspiring feeling to think that because of advances in science, we may be able to understand the Quran in a different way than the people understood it when it was revealed. We can get a different vantage point or a different glimpse than people who lived in 7th century Arabia. And that, to me, is a very, very spiritually uplifting notion. So without further ado, let me get to our verses. They are verses 71 and 72 from Surah Al-Qassas that we have read in Juz 20. So the verses pose a hypothetical talking about God's mercy. And they are أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء أفلا تسمعون. Say, have you considered if Allah should make for you the night continuous until the day of resurrection? What deity other than Allah could bring you light? Then will you not hear? And verse 72, قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بليل تسكنون فيه أفلا تبصرون. Say, have you considered if Allah should make for you the day continuous until the day of resurrection? What deity other than Allah could bring you a night in which you may rest? Then will you not see? So we are being asked to consider this notion that what if in ja'ala Allahu alaykum al-layla sarmada, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make the night a permanent state, a state without end, that it is always night. Who would give us light? Will we not then consider God's signs? And if in ja'ala Allahu alaykum an-nahara sarmadan, if God made the daytime endless day, so that we did not have the alternation of day and night, who other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give us a night in which we could rest? So a hypothetical is being posed, and we probably have not paused to consider it beyond kind of shrugging our shoulders, because it does not seem like a hypothetical that could actually happen, that it is more a thought experiment, if you will. And the science of the last century has actually taught us that this is not just a thought experiment, that it is a very, very realistic hypothetical, and that we can see this now from a different vantage point, that this is a very practical, hands-on, tangible demonstration of God's mercy. Is there such a situation where there could be no alternation of the night and the day? How could that happen? Well, we may think that the alternation of the night and day is really just part of the fabric of the universe, if you will, because when planets are created from spinning balls of dust, they spin on their own axis, and that the night and day alternate because the Earth revolves on its axis as it orbits the sun. And here's a sort of picture that we all saw in, middle school or high school. Here's the sun's rays, and part of the Earth is facing the sun, and that's day. And then as the Earth revolves on its axis, this part that is being illuminated by the sun's light spins out of the sun's glare, and the part that is now dark will spin into the light of the sun, and that because the Earth spins on its axis, therefore we have the alternation of day and night. Well, that is definitely true, but with a twist or a reservation. And to understand that reservation and the point that I'm trying to get at with this short reflection, we need to introduce a newly discovered phenomena in astrophysics. And so here it is. Okay, so this phenomena is known as gravitational tidal locking. It's also called gravitational locking or captured rotation or spin orbit locking. And to explain it, let's look at the situation between the Earth and the Moon. You probably know that the same side of the Moon always faces the Earth. In fact, the side that faces the Earth is known as the near side of the Moon. The side that's away from the Earth is the far side of the Moon. And for all of human history until 1959, when a Russian satellite went up and took pictures of the far side, human beings had never seen the far side of the Moon. We always see the same side of the Moon, the side that faces us, that is known as the near side, because the Moon is gravitationally tidal locked to the Earth. So the same side of the Moon always faces the Earth. Why is that? Is it because the Moon doesn't spin on its own axis? No, it actually does. But it spins slowly enough so that if we define 1 day on the Moon, a lunar day, as the time it takes to make one complete revolution on its axis, and we define a lunar year as the time it takes to make a full orbit around the Earth, the lunar day is the same length as the lunar year. So if you connect a line through these two little dots on the far side of the Moon, here that line is oriented horizontally. Now that line is oriented vertically. Now that line is vertically the other way, horizontally the other way, and here vertically the other way. That tells you that the Moon is spinning on its own axis. If it weren't spinning on its own axis, the orientation of these dots from horizontal to vertical wouldn't change. But it spins on its own axis slowly enough so that as it is spinning on its axis, it's rotating about the Earth, and the same side of the Moon is always facing the Earth. That is gravitational tidal locking. And if the Earth were gravitationally tidal locked to the Sun, if instead of the Moon and the Earth, it was the Earth and the Sun, the same side of the Earth would always face the Sun. That would mean that side, the near side, would have perpetual day, and the far side would have perpetual night. So all it would take for the hypothetical posed by verses 71 and 72 would be for the rotation of the Earth to slow down enough so that instead of taking 24 hours to rotate on its axis, it would take 365 days to rotate on its axis. Then it would be gravitationally tidal locked to the Sun, and the same side of the Earth would face the Sun. Now, this happens between the Moon and the Earth. In fact, it happens with most moons on most planets in our solar system. But can this sort of thing happen with a planet? And it turns out that yes, it can. Here's a sort of a picture or nomogram of a sun and a planet, and this planet is gravitationally tidal locked to its sun, and the shape here is hinting at the mechanism of tidal locking that we won't get into. It's a very interesting physics issue, but the same side of this planet always faces the sun, and this is just a schematic, but he recently discovered exoplanet Proxima Centauri b. As you know, there is now a very exciting array of discoveries in astrophysics, which are exoplanets. Exoplanets are planets that are in other solar systems. So now we know that other suns, other stars have planets just like our sun has planets. And this, of course, is a very exciting development for the notion of extraterrestrial life. And the nearest star to our sun is Proxima Centauri, an exoplanet orbiting that sun, called Proxima Centauri b, discovered in 2016, is tidally locked to Proxima Centauri. So if we were to live on Proxima Centauri b, one side of the planet would have perpetual day, the other side would have perpetual night. And in fact, it turns out, this is an article from the University of Washington, that a lot of the recently discovered planets are actually tidal locked to their stars. Many exoplanets to be found by coming high-powered telescopes will probably be tidally locked, with one side permanently facing their host star, according to new research by astronomer Rory Barnes of the University of Washington. So it turns out that it's actually a fairly common phenomena in the universe, in our galaxy alone, let alone other galaxies, that you will have planets that are tidally locked to their stars and that live in this bizarre state of one side of the planet with perpetual day and one side of the planet with perpetual night. And astrophysicists have actually done now simulations based on what we know about the output of the sun, that what if the Earth were tidally locked to the sun? And so the side facing the sun wouldn't have a chance to cool as it rotated away from the sun, and it would keep building up heat, and it would basically be either on fire, burning, or a completely parched desert. And the other side would have spread of polar ice caps, and it would be basically like the ice ages of eons ago. So the fate of the Earth, if it were to be tidally locked around the sun, has been a problem of interest to astrophysicists, and they have actually done simulation modeling as to what would happen. So we see that when the Quran poses this hypothetical, we can now see it in a completely different way than somebody living in 7th century Arabia. This is not just, oh, well, okay, sure, but this could never happen. It's an interesting thought. This is a very real phenomena that could conceivably have happened to our planet. And so that, to me, to be able to see it in that way, really makes it a tangible manifestation of God's blessing and God's mercy to us, that we do not live on such a planet. Again, here's another such simulation where the side facing the sun in a tidally locked Earth is complete uninhabitable desert. The side away is basically an ice desert, and life on Earth would only be possible in the thin transition zone known as the twilight zone. And so it is out of God's mercy that our planet is a fertile, lush, temperate, habitable planet, and that we have not been created in this situation of having to face such a harsh reality as exists on many other planets. So when we read this hypothetical, we can next time, inshallah, pause together to reflect that, subhanallah, it really could have been different, and that, alhamdulillah, we are able to get a glimpse of this reality in a way completely different than 7th century Arabia or than 17th century Europe, because we now understand something that they did not know, and we now have tangible proof of planets that are indeed tidally locked. And so let us then end with verse 73, which follows the two verses we were just discussing, that وَمِن رَحْمَتِهِ جَعَلَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لِتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. That it is out of his mercy and his grace that he has made for you the night and the day, so that you might rest therein as well as seek to obtain what you need of his bounty. The night is for rest and the day is for obtaining the bounty. He gave you all of this so that you might have cause to be grateful. So I hope, inshallah, that this gives us a different glimpse, a different perspective, and I sincerely hope that you also find this perspective to be a deeply spiritual one. Take care, Ramadan Mubarak, and God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.